Know why she's gone? Because I didn't need her.
I don't want to suspect him! There's no way!
You've got to start being more suspicious of everyone, you dummy!
Promised Neverland does something distinct from most dystopian social secret-based stories. Normally the controls we see are immediately obvious and harsh, from psychopaths as flashy and visceral dominators to From the New World's chilling memory manipulation. While such things are in place for the Promised Neverland, the giant wall most notably, they aren't immediately obvious. Rather, what we see first, the supposed extent of these children's boundaries, is this first, shorter fence. It's hardly even worth mentioning. It's clearly an indicator not meant to actually keep anyone before it. When you consider the situation, at first it seems odd, knowing that these kids are being kept here as cattle to let them feel escape so easily. But that's exactly why it plays to our core idea here today: trust. Remember in Death Note when Light leaves the key in the drawer where he hides the Death Note under a secret panel and diary? It's the same concept here. You see the key, see that sign, and go, okay, there's nothing really important past there, because if so, they would have worked harder to hide it. Before these children are ever even able to wander this far, they've had a lot of time with Isabella to feel her warmth and care, to see her actions and listen to her words, to develop trust. She tells them that the fence is as far as they're allowed to go. They get there, and what they see is something so easy to overcome, hardly an obstacle at all, so there must really not be anything worthwhile past it, right? If they were being kept in, or something was truly being kept out, there would be an actual fence here, not this dingy marker. This is just for their best interest to stay close to Mom, just a marker for that. So there's no reason to explore it out of curiosity. Their trust in their mother outweighs the curiosity of the human race. Considering that the defining trait of our species is to ask why, this is no simple feat, and it shows the power trust has on us. This isn't the only example of it, by the way. The anime opens on our main trio standing at the gate, pondering what exactly lies after it, but they never act on this feeling until Rei sneakily manipulates them into doing so with Connie's rabbit. And this was just out of care for a sibling, not out of human curiosity. If they really wanted to know what was out there, they could have followed Isabel guiding a child out to the gate any of the times it happened. We know confirmed that at least 2 kids left before them. They could have jumped over the small fence, but they didn't, because why doubt what Mom says? She can leave her main door unlocked because they won't go sniffing around the secret bookcase or the second door. She can disappear in there at the same exact time every day and not have an issue because they don't want to make trouble. All of this shows just how much trust they have in her, and it's built on her trusting them, or at least trusting her own manipulation over them. By leaving these little pockets where they could break the rules, she makes sure that they never actually will break the rules. It's not like they fear consequences. We see that she's actually rather lenient in the past when they break the rules. It's breaking trust, genuinely disappointing someone they love, which motivates them to be good. A feeling much stronger than fear, one that induces positive actions rather than just forbidding negative ones and almost providing them more of an allure. But it also relies on the opposite feeling of doubt. More specifically, creating a world which isn't conducive to doubt. The best way to do this is to create as perfect a world as possible, and this is both great storytelling design and great design within this series world itself to have these little picturesque pocket worlds. For the story, it allows the narrative to be amazingly focused and tight, and within the story it makes perfection rather achievable. The goods they need are transported in from somewhere else, allowing their little patches to remain unblemished by the needs of the modern human race. They keep the duties which build social cohesion, like cooking and laundry, things they need to work together to do and which can be reasonably enjoyed with other people. They intimately know everyone around them because there's so few of them, and so there are no widespread social issues which plague them. No money, no class, no large-scale conflict. This is all possible because they're a secretly funded, isolated space. These kinds of issues, like where to get food in an industrial society, are resolved in secret, leading to farms that are carefully cultivated little cells with only the best experiences the world has to offer. A lot of effort went into creating picture-perfect slices of life. This doesn't just provide reason for the inhabitants not to doubt, as who would willingly question paradise, but also creates the conditions for doubt to be utterly destructive. This is best seen when Dawn is let into the truth, and his reaction is to laugh it off. They inform him of one of the darkest possible truths, the kind of joke Emma would never tell, and it comes off as comedy because this shatters everything he's known of the world. The options are either that this is some kind of offhanded prank, or that his entire life is both turned upside down and about to end. It's not just that the future is now bleak or that the past was a lie, but that every emotion he's ever felt, every ounce of warmth, was a lie. At first, all this former kindness is evidenced against what the main trio claim. How could someone so great perform such evil actions? Who holds someone with such care before sending them to die? Isabella is a great mother. It doesn't make sense. But the kindness they knew, the lives they led, every hug, every meal, all of it is recontextualized by this truth and turned into something incomprehensibly vile. And feelings aren't actual evidence. Kindness isn't proof of anything. It exists for a reason like any feeling. It has intent or desire behind it. The main trio see this exact principle in action, with the double meaning behind many aspects of their lives that they figure out in statements like these.
Our regulated lives? The white clothes that show when we're dirty? The delicious food? All of it is to keep up our quality of life as merchandise.
The tests are now seen as a measure of meal quality, the fence as the distraction it is, and so on. What makes this so hard is, up until harvesting, everything is as it seems, just not for the reasons they were told. The trust they feel has reason, but that reason is a lie. Isabella is a representation of false trust. On the side of the farms as well, there's Krona. Her case is the most simple since it only spans half the series' runtime, but it helps establish an important principle. And that's the importance of even having trust in the first place. Krona kind of screws herself by playing every side at once, and by making it rather obvious as well. She's impossible to trust. When she strikes a deal with the kids, they turn around and immediately know she's gonna double-cross them because she literally just did the same thing with Isabella. Her intent is worn on her sleeve, it's simply self-gain. With Isabella, as we covered more in her dedicated video, there is some loyalty to the lie. It's what she develops everything we just covered based on. There is actual backing to her. Even if it's brittle, she has a motivation founded by others, which guides her trust. Same for the kids, they all have at least each other, and they each embody forms of trust that we'll get to as well. In contrast, Krona is, well, alone. She has no one to turn to, and that makes her vulnerable. Both Isabella and the children can come after her at once from both sides, because what are the consequences? Who else's wrath are they invoking if they do so? Even the other mothers don't trust her, because they trust Isabella more. She's the weakest link, the first point to be attacked. She loses before anyone else, because that's what happens without trust. She isn't a form of it exemplified, but rather the complete lack of it. What's one step up from trusting no one? Well, trusting yourself, and this is Ray, the overdramatic, moody little of the group. He's absolutely some kid at the peak of his emo phase, becoming the villain and playing it up, and you know what? I'm here for that energy. Ray is my favorite because he plays the part of a tragic hero on a quest to save the world from a great lie from the very start. Lacking infantile amnesia, he retains memories from even before his birth, and as such knows all about this world's secrets. For years, acting as Isabella, his genuine mother spy, he collects rewards to build a device to disable the trackers located in their ears. He gathers information they can use, he sets up the situation for Emma and Norman to uncover the truth, and plans his own demise to help them escape. He's isolated with his knowledge for years, and it drives him crazy with his planning, culminating in him deciding to burn himself alive as a distraction. The perfect meal raised for the one ruined in an instant, this brutal sign of his humanity by disrespecting that very fact. He only trusts himself and his own plan. We can see hints of this all along, like how he forces a commitment from Norman about lying to Emma on saving every child. He doesn't consider that they may have a way to do so, and as we later see they do, he simply trusts his idea that it's impossible. He's known the longest, thought on this truth the longest, he's the one who knows best. Or so he thinks. Ray is like a miniature case study on diversity and productivity. Everyone knows a diverse team, especially diverse leadership, is better, and depending how high up, it gets even better from there. And the reason for this is kind of like conflict, or at least a light form of it, the meshing of different perspectives, which leads to disagreements. Different ideas come from people who've lived different lives, desire different things, and just at the end of the day, think differently. But the actual final plan that's implemented by Emma and everyone else uses, well, nothing from Ray. They don't even need his device for disabling the trackers, instead slicing off their own ears to adapt his fire into their plan. That blaze is his entire contribution to those 2 months of planning after Norman is shipped out. While they all work together, he sticks to his secret internal desire of penance for spying on his fellow kids over those 6 years. Although he is seeking a good result from his sacrifice, it's still a selfish one. We have this almost idealized idea of sacrifice, with countless villains or anti-heroes being redeemed by sudden life-ending decisions for the greater good. But what's really better? One moment of helping others, or a lifetime full of it? By living with a newfound dedication to those they harmed, the tragic hero can perform much more good than with a simple sacrifice. The real penance is not an escape from life, it is living it in all its pain, dedicating that pain to solving the issues that you once caused. I think we see this realization in Ray. Speaking with his memory of Norman, he says on escaping with everyone,
I kind of figured they'd all just hold us back.
As he's amazed at how much Emma and the others trained right in front of his eyes, and he didn't even notice it, as they used every waking moment on massed preparation while he simply moped around. It wasn't that they were actually incapable of helping it or escaping without his help, it's just that he didn't trust them enough to notice it. And because he didn't trust them, they couldn't trust him to be in on it, to be part of this new plan. His arc ends in the most fitting way with all this in mind. One of the younger children, Jemima, is scared to make the zipline trip, holding up the entire plan and the last 2 children after her. Norman steps over and agrees to tie her onto him for his turn, while at the same time preventing the fear of the other 2 remaining boys by playing to their ego. This is the first time that he actually genuinely helps others just for them, not acts of desire for personal interest or helping his closest friends to survive. It's a new kind side to Ray. The kind of thing you'd expect from someone who's realized how to fix their mistakes. Ray clearly shows us that simply trusting yourself alone will never be enough. It's good, it's crucial even, but the world is too big for just one human. Norman and Emma then provide insight as to more ideal forms of trust, its downfalls and benefits. We'll start with Norman because he's quite opposed to Ray in his approach. Where our budding emo teen wears his selected emotions in full for everyone to see, something understandable when you trust yourself and thus see this as important and valid, our contrastingly bright palette Norman hides all of his emotions for the sake of something greater. We so often see that he feels these hits of intensity just as much as Emma or Ray, but that he chokes them down instead to focus on the others and move forward. None more so obvious than right here, as he's visibly shaken but moves to assist Emma before even sparing a moment for himself. Norman is the calculator of the group. They all have brains, but Emma and Ray tend to have their logic overcome by emotions, both positive and negative ones respectively. Norman doesn't face this issue, or at least doesn't allow himself to face it. And this provides them a lot of benefit. Having someone so consistently cool-headed is integral to their eventual escape. Emma, while well-meaning and eventually caving on this request, holds them back by seeking to take everyone. And Ray nearly assures their death with a reckless plan overcome by his emotions and failing in logic. Norman never makes such a rash or instant decision, save for so easily succumbing to Emma's request, but then going back on that in private anyway. My favorite markers of this are both when his ship date is moved up, and then when he returns after the failed escape attempt they tried to resolve this with. Ray and Emma hurry together a plan that involves breaking Ray's arm and don't even give it a second thought on the prior one. When that fails, they throw any and every possible solution for escape at Norman, who immediately shoots them all down with their obvious flaws and then the danger they'd bring to everyone else. I think what we see here is an odd form of trust. It's baited in careful yielding to the whims of human emotion, yes, but only when those emotions can be worked around with cold logic, with numbers, facts, even his own life being worked around. At the end of the day, they're playing a game of numbers. Each life is valuable and must be respected, something we definitely see from Norman. But this means that 37 will always be more than 1. By Norman's own logic, the only reasonable thing to do is to sacrifice himself. So if we had some sort of theoretical scale of trust with Ray over here, Norman would sit a little more past him. He clearly doesn't only trust himself, leaving his plan in the hands of others, but he only does so with some degree of certainty, only after surveying the area and finding exactly where and how they could escape, essentially making the plan, or at least most of it, for them. I guess in that way, probability itself is like a form of trust, believing in the odds and always taking the surest option. It's effective. Without Norman's logic, there would have been no escape. But it leaves something to be desired, doesn't it? It still ends with the possibility of sacrifice, just as our more moody other main characters did. But of course, there's Emma. Normally, I try to tame myself a bit, setting aside my personal enjoyment of a concept for more thematic analysis, but this last section is probably going to be quite unabashedly fangirly of how much I love this final plan. Because it's very much a meta-narrative on the tragic hero idea that Ray portrays, reinforcing how selfish it can be, and that's kind of the mindset I have at times, and I love things that tear down my own mindset and make me feel kind of weak. Now, I'll get back on track. As Emma explains, she was merely pretending to be the defeated hero, secretly giving orders to the rest of the children without moving a muscle herself. Since only the main three, along with Dawn and Gilda, were cast in suspicion, Isabella wasn't watching the rest of the children. After all, why would she? They're not the heroes of this story. We're not focused on them for a reason. The actions of the other children preparing are in full visibility, yet she pays them no mind at all. In the same way, we don't pay mind to their model rockets or their zip lines. And to prove this point, can you tell me what their names are, these minor characters? I certainly can't. Even as they become integral to the story, they remain background characters. This is in part for the surprise twist, but it's also a meta-narrative on the very idea of heroes intertwined with the idea of trust. They are the people we trust with the future. That's a hero. The world is large and terrifying, overwhelming for many of us to face, even just being tasked with daily life. So we place faith in certain individuals and support them in that task, rather than performing it directly. This is almost just like the basis of government and elections and things like that as well. When they are competent, strong, dependable, essentially perfect people, this can lead to success. But when they're not, when they're simply people just as flawed as us, only with more attention, the result is often disaster. It's a burnt house and child without escape anymore possible. Heroes don't really exist as we think of them, the simplified stories of a few individuals. Even real-life figures we learn of are nothing without the ones backing them, from politicians to generals to leaders of social movements. There's a lot happening in the background we don't see, And so this is what the Promised Neverland shows us, that we must not trust in individuals, but that we as individuals must trust in each other. Emma is not the hero, she merely helps to assemble a collective hero, the wishes and efforts of everyone involved. Isabella sees escape as a genuine impossibility, even to the point of allowing these troublemakers to stay knowing they're trying to escape, because when she was younger, she was working to escape alone. She was having to be a lone hero, a genuine impossibility in their world. You can never escape a place like this alone. Isabella is the little drip of proof that this and many other things we think of as heroic simply aren't solo actions. They require a lot more trust. And this collective idea in itself is still hard work. It doesn't simply happen overnight. Something we witness happening quietly in the series is how much trust Emma garners between her and every single other child. She never lies to achieve her wishes as even Norman did. She's simply honest about them and allows others to react. There was never a moment of betrayal where she broke her word, as almost everyone else has. She goes as far as providing proof for her claims, baiting Krona into giving the truth to children listening beyond the door, instead of relying on this trust she built in the first place, basically proving it before she relies on it. She's not giving her life for them or dying for them, but she's giving her all for them because she loves them. It's a mixture of both her will to help and her personal desires in life. By doing this so unabashedly, she can comfortably gain the same thing from others. Knowing how much she cares, believing her, how hard she's working, everyone else is then able to provide their all in return, wanting both to stay alive and support this cause she leads for everyone's sake. Through this mutual love, it becomes even more personal than it already seems. It bolstered individual desire, the drive to stay alive, to heroism. Think about it like this. Who would you actually trust more? Someone who says that they'll die for you in any situation, or someone who says they'll do anything to survive with you instead? At the very least, this latter is agreeing to support you for much longer than the former. This is complete trust, and it means there's no issue in her leaving the plan in the hands of others so she could act as a distraction, because there's a backing of about 10 years of trust that such a decision is built upon. If they fail her now, then there really never was a chance to begin with. They'd end up with Isabella's mindset that escape really was impossible, except it wouldn't really be a mindset, it would just be the truth at that point. I've already started going off script, and to be honest, I wrote this one a while ago. I had a lot of different issues pop up that prevented me from working on anything YouTube for about a week and a half now, which for me, considering I do this every single day, was a long drought. So I had to come back to this script late. I actually wrote the Norman section, or the second half of that last, so it's probably a weaker section of the video, and this one might have fallen behind a little bit overall, but I hope there's still something good in here, and hopefully it'll still do well and there's something in here, because this anime is really good. I really enjoyed talking about it. We'll have it included in some different multiple series discussions, which I want to get back to at some point really soon, because those are interesting, but I'm looking for topics that really pull me in and that I really want to research, so they're taking a little bit longer, but I think it's going to be worth it. There's going to be some really good ones, hopefully coming up here soon once everything settles back down, because life is crazy, or as Life is Strange so famously said, life is weird. Wow, I'm really rambling. I could do this all day, so instead I'll leave you with important links in the pinned comment, Twitter, I guess, as well as Discord, where eventually I'll start being more active once things settle down. I feel awful about not being able to do much more than greeting right now, but I love interacting with everyone there. And Patreon, of course, where these lovely people above me support me through all these awful times and help me keep providing all this to you. But I appreciate everyone, as always. A big thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.